Awesome. I see that recording is in progress. So I am going to say welcome back to most of you, or welcome for the first day for you. If you are here for the first time, welcome to day two of our first ever Nevada Watershed University, which is a virtual knowledge exchange for all the folks who are here, and not all of you are in Nevada. I know that a couple of you are on the other side of the Sierra. I am on the other side of the Sierra. I'm actually sitting in Sacramento, California, and my name is Hunter Merritt. For those of you who didn't meet me yesterday, I'm here thrilled to be here actually with my colleagues from the Corps and from the state of Nevada, and from several agencies and organizations, and maybe just interested individuals. So I want to welcome you all back, and I'm hopeful that you can see the next slide that I have here, which is an orientation. Now, most of you coming back, and that's 31 folks here that I see listed. The participant numbers are going up. Most of you were here yesterday, so you know what to do, and I'm not going to ask you to annotate here. But I'm going to point out that annotations are going to be needed for this next activity, which I will do in just about 1 minute. Keep an eye on the clock while I go. For those of you who are newbies to this, at the minimum, look at the bottom right and click participants and chat and open up that space, because that will be how you can tell us who you are, where you're from, who you work with, what you're interested in learning. You can ask questions, you can make comments, you can post links, you can do all kinds of stuff. Chat is at minimum a great side channel for communicating, and we will be monitoring that. So yeah, as Lindsay says, please introduce yourself at the beginning, and that way we know you know how to hit that button. Emojis and hand raises. Let's just see an emoji storm right now. I mean, I saw some real raindrops yesterday. Let's see some emoji raindrops. There we go. Danae is celebrating, and people are giving their thumbs up. Elizabeth is on fire. All right, cool. So people know how to use those. Those of you who are speaking, whether you are presenting or whether you are going to ask a question, we'd love to see your video. And as per yesterday, you will see, and I see that Lindsay has done this. I asked you to take a picture or pull out a picture of your favorite watershed from Nevada, and you can put it in as a background. So right next to the video button is a little arrow up and down, or a little down arrow, and you can add that as a background. Background that I have here is just above Mono Lake, right at the summit. In fact, I think looking that direction, I'm looking in Nevada, and if you turned around, I'd be looking into California and the Tuolumne River watershed going that direction. So it was a pretty amazing hike. I'm not going to dwell on this. Instead, I'm going to share a big old whiteboard and just test how much fun we can have for the next 2 minutes. Let's draw. And the way we will draw is I'm going to draw a big state of Nevada. I'm going to see if I can do that very quickly. Here's our northern border, and then it's going to go down sort of like that. And by the way, I can zoom out, zoom in and zoom out. So I will draw a little bit longer arrow here. And I know that there's some sort of thing that makes it kind of not the tip isn't a tip. Somebody can tell me the reasons why, but something like a very rough sketch of that's almost the state of Nevada southernmost tip. And then I think something like this and something like this. And don't make fun of my drawing. Don't laugh at my poor artistic skills. Instead, I'd like you to try. Haha, it's not that easy, is it? Upper left-hand corner is in marker, and all of you should be able to annotate at this point. There's underneath the TT, there's a text tool. Yeah, somebody got that right. There's Lake Tahoe. Very well done, by the way, anatomically correct. I see almost exactly a perfect amount of Lake Tahoe in Nevada, other parts not. Yeah, start drawing, use any color that you like. I'm going to give it a few minutes, and anybody who's having trouble, just come off mute, hit *6 for if you're on the phone and you're like, I don't even know what we're talking about. I do see one phone number, 916 ending in 76. If you are that number, press *6, introduce yourself, say hello. The rest of you, yeah, you're doing a great job. Some people are drawing water. It looks like in California that's going into Nevada. Somebody's got, what in the world is that big old green blob? If you run into trouble and you say, oh, this isn't what I want and I need to delete it, you can go to the bottom left and there's an eraser. You can erase your markings, but not anyone else's unless you're the presenter. And I'm the presenter. So, for any of you who just showed up here on day 2 and are not familiar with what the heck is going on, yesterday we had a chat. What's your favorite watershed or water body in Nevada? And I am inviting you to introduce yourself, say hello. I'm here for the first time, either in chat or on microphone, and tell us who you are and what your favorite water body is. That's for the newbies. Yeah, okay. Humboldt, Carson River. Good morning, Kelly. Good morning. Welcome back, Larry Schmidt. Larry, you can put that little flash flood spot over there in Elko, wherever. I had a great time meeting you yesterday in our small group. Okay, we're going to give us about 30 more seconds. And if you're having trouble, you're like, oh, I really want to put my water body in there, but you're having, oh, yes, thank you very much for the compass. Somebody put a north compass there. Ooh, now we're putting some text to this. Clark County is no longer in Nevada. Hey, easy now. Let's see. We don't want to start off too contentious. So,
go to
all
the
right.
commercial counter. Anybody else knows?
What do we have there?
Do the tax exempt on it before they start ringing stuff up. Let them know it's tax exempt.
There you go. Thanks, Tim Hunt. We got so I got my colleagues here, Lindsay and Danae, who are fast with the button. If you get muted, sorry, our apologies. Just have to unmute yourself. I still haven't heard from 916 blah 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 ending in 76. Anyone there?
Hey, good morning. This is Robert Lampa, California Department of Water Resources. Here for the first day. I can't get on for some reason online, so I'm using my phone. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. I'd encourage you to keep trying. And if you, Robert, would like to take my email down, I can give you, at least you can take my email down and maybe we can help get you connected.
Okay.
My email is hunter, HUNTER .merritt, MERRITT at usace.army.mil, usace.army.mil. So there you have it. Send me an email, and if there's a way that I can connect you into the WebEx, it's going to be way better because you can't believe how awesome this map of Nevada is. I'm going to stop annotations at this point.
Okay.
And
I'll give it a try. It was asking me for a meeting password because I was trying to join online because I don't have WebEx, but that's what I sent an email to your Silver Jackets for a response, but I haven't heard one back yet.
Okay, well, if you email me at that hunter.merritt@usace.army.mil, I will forward it on to Lindsay and Danae, and we can get you connected. In the meantime, welcome, Robert. You're not looking at an awesome view of Nevada. What I'm going to do at this point is steal this ball back from all of y'all, and I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to say, well, this is what geology.com had down, so let's see how close you were. We have the Truckee River, got Lake Tahoe, got Carson, got Humboldt. Humboldt's a big river. All right, Lake Mead way down there in the bottom, and Lake Mojave in the Colorado River. Virgin and the Meadowview and the White coming into it. This is an amazing state. I know it's very dry. I believe it's the driest. I think I'm right. I don't know. Y'all are the smart folks here. So tell me if I'm right.
By far,
all right.
By far the driest.
By far the driest. But that doesn't mean we don't have any water, and it doesn't mean we don't have any water problems. So Welcome to day 2 of our adventure here. And with it, I'd like to say welcome to you and welcome back. And I hope we had a little bit of fun drawing our state watersheds. I'm here in the background. I can monitor chat and help out. I'm going to hand it off to Sarah Fitchner. Sorry, Sarah. And you can tell us a little bit about what Robert missed yesterday and recap what we all listened to and witnessed. Tag, you're it.
Thanks, Hunter. Yep, Sarah Fickner here. I'm the state floodplain mapping coordinator with the Division of Water Resources. And good to see you all back again today. Lindsay or Danae, could you advance to the day 1? There we go. So yeah, Chris gave an awesome explanation of atmospheric rivers versus monsoons in Nevada. I learned a lot during that presentation. Thank you, Chris. Also the floodplain management case studies. That was just a great view of how what floodplain management looks like today and how it's changed over the last few decades. I thought that was super interesting. And and we got great feedback on the flood after fire presentation as well. So great day yesterday. We're all looking forward to doing it again today. And yeah, before I hand it over to our first presentation of the day, I just want to remind everybody that please, when we're done here, fill out our exit survey. That really helps us, with our grant deliverables. If you're enjoying this this forum, then it'll help us to do it again and hopefully better with your feedback. All right, hope everybody enjoys today.
Thanks, Sarah. There's a phone number here. Just want to jump in and say welcome to number 775-2 something 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 something, because it's blotted out with asterisks. Your number ends in 36. If you are on the phone only and you want to hit *6 and introduce yourself, this is a great time to do it. If that's connected with another person.
This is Eric Sheets again with TURFMA, Turkey River Flood.
Cool. All right. Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, great. And just real quick to give an overview of our day today, what we have ahead. We're going to have a panel and hear from Risk Rating 2.0 here momentarily. We'll have a quick break, some virtual engagement activity, followed by a CRS overview panel. And we're going to get to hear about successes and challenges across Nevada. And then we're going to have a really awesome themed breakout group opportunity where some of our subject matter experts on the line with us today are going to be available to answer kind of specific questions about NFIP, Risk Rating 2.0, education and outreach for flood risk, and various other topics. So we're looking forward to today. And I think we can go ahead and get started with our first panel. I guess I'll do a mic check. Do we have Adam on the line?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you loud and clear. Thanks, Adam.
Great.
And are you back with us?
Did you ask for me, Erin Warnock?
Yep. Hey, Erin.
Yep. Okay. Hi. Sorry, it just cut out for a moment. I'm here.
Okay, awesome. I think we are ready to get started. Is there anything else you need from us on this end? Do you want us to drive the slides, or do you want to take over and drive?
I can say next slide, or if you want to give me control, I can click it from here.
Okay, I'll give you control, and then if you want to click it.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm passing the presenter ball over to you, Adam, and then you'll be able to advance the slides using the arrows right above the, yep, there you go.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome everyone. Now, I had an updated presentation where this said welcome Nevada Watershed University, but that's fine. This was from a prior presentation. This is a FEMA Region 9 presentation. Go ahead and helping out with for Edie Lohman. She's the insurance specialist. Region 9 is staff is spread pretty thin right now. So it allows me to come in and both Edie and I, we kind of do that's the same thing. I'm on the contractor side. She's on the FEMA side. But we've really worked well over the last, I want to say it's been probably about 12 or 13 years now. I did have a little hiatus where I was doing some agent education, but I'm back in the region, happy to be back in the region, happy to be interactive. I will be at the Douglas County public meeting next week, so I look forward. That's a meeting I've done probably about 5 or 6 times. Great location, usually a pretty good turnout. So looking forward to taking part and getting back to doing the things that I like to do. So what I want to talk about is today's goal with risk rating 2.0. So it's there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of details that we'll go over, and some of that information will be presented, but we'll talk about later in the presentation about kind of what we can see when ratings are done and what cannot be seen and kind of what happens in the background. So I will provide some of that technical data that's provided and what's happening with risk rating 2.0, but I like to really present just that practical view of what policyholders and what floodplain managers and FEMA staff and NFIP, what really happens, kind of on that practical level. So we'll talk about that also. All right, so we'll talk about risk rating 2.0. We have this risk rating 2.0 overview. We will talk about the transition of existing policies. I'll go ahead and lay out some dates there where we can see when this all kind of started. And then we'll also talk about, I guess, the ending of this transition. And then we'll look at some of the premium impacts that risk rating 2.0 has had. So let's go ahead and we'll move forward by saying, let's go ahead and, again, this is called risk rating 2.0. I guess the first question would be, has everyone heard a lot about risk rating 2.0? Has people attended training or classes or webinars to learn about it? If you want, you can go ahead and raise your hand and say yes. It's just kind of a general way to kind of start off the presentation. I think here you'll see that that flag of saying there's a unique flood risk. So you'll really kind of see as we introduce some of these new rating variables and rating factors, how instead of like these blanket rates that used to kind of be set in the NFIP flood manual, you'll now see that each rating for each individual property is unique to that property. So that's something that's really, really new. And FEMA has done this mainly because the rating system that was in place, that was like 40 plus years, somewhere along the lines, kind of the same rating system that was used. And now they really want to get everything in line with the technology and the methodologies that are available to go ahead and generate these unique rates. And they've done that. And there's private sector data that's been used, catastrophe modeling, actuarial science. So the limitations that were there before, that's kind of been overcome now by this new system. So we'll go ahead and dive a little deeper into that as we go along by doing this risk rating 2.0 overview. So let's go ahead and we'll first get into those dates that I talked about. So new policies. This was phase 1. This was last year in October of 2021. that was all new business policy. So once that October 1st date of 2021, once that came through, all these new business policies were going to be written under risk rating 2.0. And then phase two, this was for all the existing policies. So you have these existing policies where somebody already had NFIP coverage, and these existing policies began transitioning to risk rating 2.0 on that April 1st date. And the interesting part here is that when those renewals happened, they were really given two opportunities and two pathways. So you had one pathway, which was, well, you can go right to the new rating, which is risk rating 2.0, if that was more favorable, or you could stay with the rating that was established on your policy, but now you're going to be subject to these statutory increases. So for most policies, you're looking at like the single family dwelling policies that they can see a maximum of 18% premium increase per year. You have things like rental dwelling policies or commercial policies, and in some of those cases, you can see 25% increases per year. So whichever was the more favorable option was the path that the options that the policyholder was given to go ahead and establish that rate. So in some cases, and we'll put up a graphic later that shows how many policies were affected and how they were affected. In some cases, the glide path that staying with their current policy and then seeing those increases each year, that was the more favorable rate, whereas in some cases the new rating was more favorable and they were allowed to go to that. And that started on April 1st. So now we're in November of 2022. We have these transitions happening until March 31st of 2023. And then at that point, everything will be converted over to the new risk rating 2.0 policies. All right, so here's why there was such a big push for this new rating methodology, because I think we all have learned, we all know that the water does not stop at a flood line. So this unique rate was done so that these flood risks could be more accurately identified. Really under the old system, it was, hey, you're in or out. That wasn't always a fair estimation. I think if you've attended or been a part of the NFIP for a long time, there was always these talk of percentages of floods that happen outside of the special flood hazard area. And that was a pretty large number, anywhere from like 25 to 30% of the paid claims were happening to these properties and these structures outside of the special flood hazard area. So as an example of that, you have like an AE flood zone. We know that that's really different than, let's say, like a VE zone, something that's on the coast, or an AE zone, higher elevations, built differently. Whatever those unique factors were, under the old legacy system, those were being charged basically the same premium. They were all under the same rating table. So it just really is a way to again establish that uniqueness. And under this system, those flood zones are now not part of the rating anymore. So we'll talk about a little bit more about the details, but we're really looking at the individual geographic, the individual building, and these other rating variables that determine what the rate of the policy would be, or that final premium. All right, again, here's the old methodology, and we put up this firm map here. Pretty good. You have the city of Galveston. You can see there the AE zone, and put a little pinpoint there. And here you had a policy kind of right in the middle of all that special flood hazard area, but that was a zone X. So it was just really limiting and identifying really the actual flood risk of a property. So there was really, and that was really the only thing that was the main driver of the flood premium. So under that old methodology, that's now been eliminated. So here's an example. We have all these nice bright new colors. We have this new methodology. You can see there's still some FEMA sourced map data being included it's mainly because it's set as like the foundation for all these new layers to go on top of these additional data sources, these broader range of frequency, all these rating variables, cost to rebuild, and fees and surcharges. But if you look over to the left side of the slide, you can see there you have Great Lakes, storm surge, tsunami, coastal erosion, inland flood, riverine. So it's really been able to identify all these unique sources of flooding that can happen to a particular structure, particular property. And so we have there, you can see those identifiers, new. So those have all been added now to include that broader range of frequencies. All right, so we have, again, this FEMA sourced map data that's used. And there was, I'll read a little bit of more technical data. We had this mapping data integration. There's another great acronym, this MDI, that was used for the Great Lakes analysis and also tsunami modeling. And those models were run by Arkens, Star2, and Compass. That might be interesting to some of you, just to know kind of where that information came from. And then here we're going to talk about those additional data sources. So there is some federal government source data, this commercially available third party. We're talking things like ARI Worldwide for inland and coastal and tsunami models, CoreLogic for some of the inland and coastal models. There's CAT Risk, which helped with the inland, coastal, and some of the levied areas. And then when we talk about the federal government data sets, we're looking at USGS, so the U.S. Geological Survey, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA, and then, of course, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for levee information. So this helped establish within this new rating, this geolocation, things like first floor height, and even a replacement cost value along the way. These have all been added in to this integrated additional data sources. So you might hear along the way as I'm talking, I might just simplify some of the conversation by saying the risk rating engine. That's what FEMA uses to incorporate all these FEMA source data, additional data sources, all these variables that we're listing here. So this is all included in this risk rating engine. So you can see there that last bullet point, it's included in the new rating, and it's all automated. And it's automated through the application process that is done through the insurance agent. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. All right, so let's go. So there's some key factors here, additional data sources. So you have here levee information that was used, levee overtopping that was done by FEMA engineers, also the Army Corps of Engineers. And then again, we talk about those additional data sets. Again, this is probably a little bit above my my expertise when it gets into that specific engineering and data that's done, because there's all this technical data, again, that's used, but it's all really done and calculated behind the scenes. When you see a flood insurance premium, when a policyholder or a property owner goes in to their insurance agent and they're asked maybe 8 to 10 questions, that information again is sent off, and all this information is completed automatically, kind of behind the scenes. So we'll go ahead and move on from that information there. And then we're going to talk about some of the now premium calculation variables. So this is probably more of the transparent area. So the area that we would more say, okay, this is something that that's tangible, that we can grasp. So we have this geographic variable, which is really just that building's location, where that building is located to the nearest flooding source, where that building is located with elevation data. And then you have the actual building itself, so that physical building characteristics, how that building is constructed, how high that building is in relation from the lowest floor to the highest adjacent grade, that highest ground next to the house. All those things are really going to determine what this rate is going to be at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and move up to the next. So we talked about, again, these geographic variables. So I was kind of covering that there, but here you can see some more items listed. So that distance to flooding source, local relative elevation, even the drainage area. All of these key variables are integrated into this geographic variable, again, calculated automatically and kind of done in the background by the system. So it's interesting to note here, again, when that quote is received, there isn't really like, hey, this is where you're located, or this is what we've identified as the flooding source. So there really isn't a lot of, I guess, for lack of a better word, a dispute on that information. Again, it's up to the agent to go ahead and send that information through the carrier to FEMA's risk rating engine, and then that information is given back to the carrier to generate that premium. And then again, we talked about those building variables, so construction type, number of floors, the foundation type, first floor height, even the replacement cost value. And the replacement cost value, this is when Risk Rating 2 was introduced. They talk about this equity in action, and so there was a disparity there with the old system, where some of the homes with lower replacement cost, it was determined that they were kind of paying their unfair portion of the premium. So with this new Risk Rating 2.0, this equity in action, they really sought to kind of like level that information into the premium. And then there are some mitigation credits given for certain items, things like location of equipment height and venting. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I think there's a separate slide for that down the line. Here we go. So we have the post pile and pier construction, things like flood opening, elevation of machinery equipment, and flood proofing. I will say under Risk Rating 2.0, those discounts are capped at lower amounts, and that really only we're looking at like 5% caps for a lot of these mitigation credits. But it is something that the agent does collect from the policyholder to go ahead and ultimately determine that final flood premium. And then here you'll see these other variables, of course, the coverage amounts, the deductible amounts. Like for a single family home, there's now options, up to $5,000, $10,000 deductibles, coverage amounts. You have things like occupancy type, that's still going to determine the rate, whether it's a owner occupied dwelling, so primary versus non-primary residence. There are some statutory discounts for things like newly mapped property. So you'll hear me talking about all these changes, things like flood zones no longer being determined for flood rating, but flood zone is still used for lenders to determine things like the mandatory purchase of flood insurance. It's also still applies the same across the board for floodplain management. So nothing's really changed within the National Flood Insurance Program for those areas, but for the rating, that's the big change, especially the elimination of the flood zone. There are some community rating system discounts are really important for those flood resilient communities to still really work towards that those CRS points and get those discounts. Now, a big addition to Risk Rating 2.0 has been these prior NFIP claims that's being added into this new rating. With prior NFIP claims, it's kind of interesting how they worked. So let's go ahead and let me go back here. And there's a star next to this prior NFIP claims, because there is going to be a surcharge if there is prior NFIP claims on the policies. But when you move into Risk Rating 2.0, you kind of get a clean slate. So there might be some prior loss history there, but there is not a charge for those prior NFIP claims until there is a new claim that happens under Risk Rating 2.0. Once that new claim happens, then there's a calculation done. Again, there's not really any set numbers to these. You can't go to the flood manual anymore and open up rate pages and say, hey, this is the premium, or this is the amount that's going to be affected. And that's a pretty new thing. I mean, for me, again, that was a big component of my performance, of my job duties, to kind of be able to say, hey, this is what's going to happen with the premium. This is what's going to happen with the rating. And again, being able to access those rate pages and say, hey, here's the amount. Again, there is some information that's listed in the flood manual, but it's just kind of, again, done in a different way. And really, it's really dependent on the information that's entered in the application, and then what's done by FEMA's risk rating engine. All right, so we're going to talk about these transitions of existing policies. Let me catch up my notes over here. Should I stop and maybe answer some questions? Are there some questions coming through that maybe we should address right now?
Yeah, hey Adam, this is Lindsay Floyd. We had a couple questions coming through the chat. I can ask a few now, and we also have 10 minutes carved out at the end for Q&A time. But the first question we saw in the chat was, how much pushback has FEMA been getting regarding the new methodology?
So, in general, I mean, I think that they're, for anything NFIP related, I think there's always some general pushback on rating. I think having that glide path option where policyholders don't automatically have to go to that new rating, that has helped kind of ease some of this transition. But what's happened is there is the NFIP's Flood Advocates Office, which is essentially FEMA headquarters. What they've really asked is that, if there are some general comments or quote unquote complaints or criticisms of some of these new ratings that are coming out, they want to track that. They want to know kind of what the trends are and where some of these common areas of issues with risk rating 2, and then they'll go ahead and collect all that information, and then there'll be adjustments done down the line. Of course, like I said, with my job, it is a little bit. It's been a little bit more of a challenge because again, it was. I wouldn't say it was easy, but at least there were ways where you could say, hey, if you do this, this is what the rate is going to go to, or if you do this, this is going to. Now everything is directed back to the insurance agent and that risk rating engine. So, I'm sure across the board in general, whether you're a community official or within the NFIP, I mean, I think we all kind of get our fair share of complaints and criticisms. But again, I think that the bottom line is we still have to look at creating that flood resiliency and the importance of property owners having, some type of flood coverage. And that could be through the National Flood Insurance Program, or that could be through, the private market. So there really is this kind of this encouragement, for property owners, and that's wherever they're located, to have that flood coverage. And we really try to just stay on board with that message because we know the cost of everything's going up. And I mean, you look at cost of claims now, even with just a few inches of water in the home. And so we really try to highlight that. But yeah, there definitely has been some premiums. I think we're seeing a lot of effect, especially with the preferred risk policies, where that program is essentially being eliminated. And I think we've seen some decline in that area. And I'm hoping that at least if there are property owners that are not opting for NFIP coverage, that they are opting for some type of coverage. Because if you've been in the National Flood Insurance program for any amount of time, you just go to these areas where people, state that, it's never going to happen here, and then it happens. And it's like, how did it happen here? And again, trying to recover, relying on things like disaster assistance. That's really difficult when there is not a policy in place. Is there maybe one or two more questions we should address?
Yeah, I'll ask one more, and then we'll save the rest that we've gotten so far for the Q&A time at the end. But I totally encourage folks to keep chatting in your questions. But the second one I'll ask you right now is, when will property owners be able to see how their rates are calculated and how many points they are getting for each item analyzed? And this person was noting that the automatic number doesn't allow a resident to point out any incorrect assumptions made in determining their rate.
Ready to assist.
Thank you so much. It's great this morning. Thanks so much.
Yeah, great content. Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Antoinette.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so we have that, like I said, that has been a little bit of the challenge. There's a big effort behind the scenes to do a lot of training for the insurance agents to address those issues. There's also an email address that's provided to any stakeholder. It could be an insurance agent, it could be policyholders, where they can just say, hey, I really just, this rating is just really out of line, or I'm not sure if it's accurate. And so they're able to go ahead and send an email to this Risk Rating 2.0 mailbox. And then that in turn gets FEMA headquarters involved. They can work with the Write Your Own Carrier to kind of help identify if there is any inaccuracies, and if it is accurate, and it allows FEMA headquarters to work with the Write Your Own to go ahead and explain and talk about those rating factors. But in many cases, like I said, we talked about those two, rating paths. Sometimes just taking that glide path policy, the rating that they currently have, and just adjusting maybe deductibles or coverage amounts to deal with the increased policy. But yeah, there isn't a lot of transparency on some of these background rating factors that we were talking about in the beginning. And I don't know if there really is going to be at some point where those are all listed out. But again, they've really put it onto the carriers who write through the National Flood Insurance Program to communicate additionally, and they're doing that with a lot of additional training behind the backgrounds to help them do that.
Great, thank you so much. We'll keep going with the presentation, but please keep chatting in questions and we'll get to them during the Q&A portion. Thanks, Adam.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have this part two, this transition of these existing policies. Again, this happened April 1st of 2022. So let's go ahead. There's a little chart here. So we can see these existing policies. And again, talked about that glide path. So if you had a preferred risk policy, you can go ahead and stick with that rating, but then you're going to see that 18% increase per year. You're going to have that grandfather policy. But then if you move over to the right of this slide, you can see here under Risk Rating 2.0 that that the preferred risk policy program, that's eliminated. The grandfathering, that's been eliminated. Now for newly mapped, there still is a statutory discount that can be applied for a new or lapsed policy. It's not as substantial as it used to be. The newly mapped program used to be very comparable to the preferred risk policy. The newly mapped statutory discount is a small amount of discount that's applied to, I want to say it's like the first 40 or 50,000 of coverage, building coverage. So it's not as substantial as it used to be, but it is a way to kind of ease into the flood insurance, especially when there's a newly mapped property. So they were located outside of the special flood hazard area. Now there's a lender requirement for them to have flood insurance because they're moved into the special flood hazard area. So that still is available. And then you had these full risk. There were a good amount of policies that were already full risk rated. Again, they're just going to decide when that renewal happens, whether they want to stick with the glide path rate or that full risk rate. And then there are still some statutory discounts applied for these AR and A99. So these areas where there has been determined that there are some improvements moving forward, where they will eventually be taken out of the special flood hazard area, there are some statutory discounts applied. All right, so see, these are some of the older numbers, and I have some updated numbers in my notes that we'll talk about. But these are classes for single family homes. Again, this is estimated February of 2022. Nevada total policies for single family homes, 9,788. I have an updated number. Let's move forward here. Let's go back. Oh no, okay, we'll go ahead and move into here. So the policy lapse, the reason that's important, if we go back to that prior slide where it had the glide path compared to what would be issued under risk rating 2.0, that 30 days now is really set. It's a rule that says, hey, that policy lapses if you've had these discounts that were continued. Maybe you have this glide path policy, and then there is that policy lapse for 30 days. Once that 30 days has passed, now you're going to move right into risk rating 2.0, and in some cases that can be pretty substantial for some policyholders, and that could be whether it's lender paid, policyholder paid, whatever it may be. And so I have run into, I probably get a couple calls a week with lender paid policies, and they want to say, hey, it was a lender's fault, it wasn't paid. I did pay it at 34 days. Can I get my old rating back? And it's pretty set that does not apply. I think Peter just asked a quick question that I saw pop up, and yeah, that is correct. That the CRS credit, that only is applying to policies that are at the full risk rating. So if you're under the glide path, that CRS really doesn't apply until you get to that full risk rating. All right, let's take a look at some of these premium impacts. So I guess the takeaway from this slide, this is pretty commonly used. If any of you if you raised your hand and said, yeah, I've attended a lot of these presentations. This is the slide that they like to go ahead and put up, and it's like, hey, there's only this $0 to $10 per month increase for a majority of these policies. I guess really the takeaway here is just every year at renewal, the policyholders are on average going to see an increase of $8 per month, but you do have this group where there were some decreases. It's like, hey, the policies are going down. So I mean, there are some policies where that does happen. The reason they paint it as a per month, and this might be confusing for some people, definitely with the public meetings that we've done where this information is presented, they say, hey, I pay my premium annually. Why are you saying per month? It's just a way to kind of to lay out the numbers. That hasn't changed. The NFIP policies, the flood policies, are still paid on an annual basis. There is not a monthly options for premium payments, and there was talk at some point of maybe establishing some type of quarterly or monthly payments. I haven't heard a lot about that recently, so I'm not sure if that's something that will happen down the line. Now, I did run the numbers this morning before we jumped on, so let me get to my notes here on that particular slide, because again, this was information that was generated back in February of 2022. I think the NFIP policies in force as of this morning, we're looking at about 9,856 policies in force for Nevada. And you can see here, some policies did see that immediate decrease on average. There were some policies where you get that $0 to $10 per month increase, about $120 per year. Some a little bit higher on average, anything greater than $20. There may have been some policies that were for misrated. The good thing is, like I said, usually that statutory cap in most places can apply and keep that policy down to a certain level. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some resources. If you haven't looked at this is probably the best place to go. That's just FEMA.gov. Just make sure, again, if you do general searches versus using links, just make sure you always see that .gov extension there at the end of the web address. I think it's usually when you punch up something flood insurance or NFIP, it seems like these companies who may be right outside of the program, they like to kind of advertise themselves as a national flood insurance program. So maybe just be careful there. But you copy and paste links, that are provided. That's usually a good way to go. But you could see, I mean, they have like state profiles. They talk about all the manuals and handbooks, everything that's kind of available for risk rating 2.0. So that is a great link there. Now, floodsmart.gov, they provide two areas. So there's FloodSmart for consumers and FloodSmarts for agents. Now, probably none of us here are insurance agents, but we're all consumers. I mean, we all kind of have that risk of flood that we need to look at. And the nice thing about this resource, and I've always kind of said this about the FloodSmart, is everything's kind of written in a general and concise way, very practical language, very easy to understand. And that could be whether it's talking about claims, whether it's talking about how to write a policy or how to purchase a policy for consumers. Even has links for flood zones and maps. So it's really, FloodSmart has really kind of become that one-stop shop for everything related to the National Flood Insurance Program. And I truly think that is a great resource for everyone to go to. And especially if you get calls and someone says, hey, I want to know more about this, you can kind of direct them there and they can get more information and they can search for information, even something like finding an insurance agent to write flood insurance. So here, like I said, you can see here on the agentsfloodsmart.gov, there's some rate explanation guides. And this is for the information that they can enter. So we go back again to that beginning of the presentation where we talked about a lot of that technical data that was incorporated into the rating. But again, this is more of that information that, hey, this is what's going to determine the rate. This is the information that's entered into the application. Now, the application for the agents, that part has been simplified to an extent where there may be 8 to 10 questions. The first floor height, there is a methodology that the system automatically will calculate a first floor height, but if the property owner does want to submit elevation certificate, you do have some cases where the system might assume that the first floor height is like 1 to 2 feet, so that we're kind of the ground or the floor where you put your feet compared to that highest adjacent grade. There obviously are some homes that are elevated well above that, so that assumption may be conservative. So there is the opportunity for the property owner to go ahead and submit elevation information and to help determine that first floor height. But yeah, these are great guides to kind of learn about what goes in and what's entered in for that flood insurance premium. Here's some additional resources. ASFPM, great site, great information. There on the far right, there's that risk rating 2.0 and elevation certificates, how to utilize that section C or section E for that first floor height, especially where we know that there's a difference there. So when we're looking at these resources, these are areas where this is transparent. Again, this is an area where this is information that the agent is entering in. This is the information that comes back, and the property owner or the insured says, hey, this isn't right, or that isn't the way my house is built. This is a chance for them to go ahead and correct that information. All right, well, it looks like we'll roll into this question and answers section of the property, and I'll do my best to answer these the best I can. I don't know if maybe you just want to read them out to me, or if Erin wants to kind of jump in and talk about some additional things with risk rating 2.0.
Hey there, this is Erin, State Floodplain Manager and NFIP Coordinator, for those of you that don't know. I really don't have a whole lot to present on as far as the state side. We're really learning a lot as well about risk rating 2.0. It's very new, and goals for the future are really just going to be to keep, of course, working with FEMA, but providing more trainings like this to keep all of our floodplain managers in the know with how risk rating 2.0 is kind of shaping up in Nevada and how it may or may not be evolving. But I do kind of want to give this time for Adam to answer questions because as we can see in the chat, this is a pretty hot topic. People have questions and we're not going to have a breakout room for this session later. So I think it's best that we allow the floor right now for questions.
Yeah, and I do see there, I'm just kind of in the chat, Peter Jackson, yeah, you talked about that, how these insurance policies are paid once a year. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because maybe you're getting a lot of questions regarding especially those preferred risk policies, or maybe a couple of you can jump in. I haven't really received as many inquiries on that. I think maybe a lot of the community officials are, so maybe you can talk about that a little bit more.
Let me try that again. This is Peter Jackson with the City of Las Vegas. Mainly the inquiries we get are from PRP policies that are outside of the flood zone. And with that 18% glide path increase a year, plus the $8 to $10 a month increase, because that's above that, you're talking about substantial increases. We're seeing at least that I think overall our PRP policies are starting to drop the number that we have. The good news is on new construction, we require them to be elevated 18 inches above the flood zone. So, and we pretty much require them to get a CLOMAR first and then a LOMAR after the project is 100% built out to make sure that the structures are removed from the flood zone. Whether the property is fully removed or not, we are making the structures get removed from the flood zone. But really the changes to PRP, the changes to risk rating 2.0, to me seem to impact the PRP policies much greater.
Definitely. And that is something that we're hearing a lot from community officials, from policyholders, from agents. That was a big bulk of the National Flood Insurance Program. So it will be interesting to see. Like I said, we're coming up. We'll have that full year of renewals coming up, and it'll be interesting to watch what amount of those policies are not renewed. Again, I really have worked disasters, nationwide in areas where, I think it's really easy. It's kind of to say, hey, Gulf states or front row homes and California or the East Coast that are affected because there's the ocean, or hey, I'm right next to a lake or a river. But I've worked so many floods in areas where maybe you would just have never imagined that happen. So I hope that there's just an encouragement of, there are some substantial rate increases, but again, that the picture needs to be painted to property owners that if you don't have some type of flood coverage, whether it's through the National Flood Insurance Program or the private market, wherever that may be, the impact or the possibility of having some type of flood event, mainly probably from the accumulation of rainfall. I've talked to community officials in Idaho. I've talked to community officials in Utah where they're seeing these 500-year rain events that they've really never seen before affecting properties. And then the policyholders, or the property owners, I should say, the not policyholders, because there aren't a lot of policies necessarily in those areas, where then they're saying, well, how do I get this covered? Well, you call your insurance agent, and the big exclusions there on those hazard policies, flood and earthquake, and they find out that surface water is something that's not covered with that regular policy. And again, just a few inches of water in your home. There's a on that FloodSmart site, there's a damage cost calculator that shows you can adjust the replacement cost, you can adjust the flood height, and you can see there that you know, with a few inches of water up to 5 feet of water, just how much those costs just rise astronomically. And again, with the cost, with inflation of rebuilding cost, of materials, of lumber, you know, dealing with something like that to self-insure could be very, very difficult. So while flood premiums are going up and there are some substantial increases, I think we really just try to paint the contrast of what it would mean, you know, to not have that coverage. And that's always been part of the National Flood Insurance Program, and challenge is part of that message to those policyholders. And it does get a little bit more difficult, as you mentioned, when you see these preferred risk policies with these pretty, you know, substantial increases. And it looks like maybe there's another question there about that CRS rating. So yeah, we talked about that CRS rating not being applied to fully risk unless the policy is fully. So I mean, it could be a 5-year time period until they see that discount. But again, you're possibly talking about that full risk rating number being a lot higher than what they're receiving under that glide path. So again, that's just kind of that way to ease into the possibility of having a higher insurance premium. And again, I think in some extent, there's maybe been a little bit of in the past, there was that disconnect with what insurance rating did, but there were tools prior, you know, especially with rating pages or things like mitigation credits, elevating a property, whatever it may be. And unfortunately, with this new rating, now that has been eliminated to an extent where it's just more difficult to provide that direct guidance. And we have received a lot of calls and floodplain managers saying, hey, well, what do I tell them now? Where's the incentive? You know, before we could tell them, hey, if you do this, this is what will be affected with your premium. But again, this really has to be still encouraged for that flood resiliency, for these flood events, for these extreme weather events that are sometimes happening, because again, you get in that situation where you're self-insuring or relying on disaster assistance. I think even recently we're still looking at, you know, average payments on disaster assistance being maybe $7,000 to $8,000, which, you know, we all know that, you know, that probably doesn't even pay for the debris removal and cleanup for a lot of these areas that are hit by floods. So again, whether they're with the National Flood Insurance Program or something outside of that, is really encouraged to have these flood resilient communities and some type of flood coverage.
Tribal leaders here in your panel discussions and your discussions throughout the day.
Hey, Adam, it looks like Kathy has her hand up. Kathy, do you want to come off mute and ask a question?
Yeah.
We're asked to do.
Sure. Thank you very much. So for our community, we're in Story County. The community that is impacted by the flood is a senior community, low income community. It's manufactured homes and trailers, a mobile home community, and their rates have skyrocketed compared to different area from what they've had in the past. This is an area that has had no repeat offenders or anything. I mean, even claims, I think, is very, very minimal claims over, you know, the years that we've had this. So one of the things that we've had concerns about is how they are being rated, and this magic, put it in the computer and something spits out, doesn't seem like do we feel like that's going to be, if it's challenged legally, that would hold up, that people can't look at how they're being rated? Because one of my comments you answered kind of before, but you know, they have no idea how to dispute what, if they have no idea what, you know, you can go through this chart, but if you don't know how you scored on something, how do you dispute? You know, they said I was built at this and I'm not, but where does it say that?
Right.
So that's one of the concerns, is that and we're looking at it as a county trying to help them and looking over this stuff. The second thing too is, you know, is there nothing written into here to help these low income things that are on fixed incomes and maybe don't have the money for this additional insurance? You know, that might be fine if, you know, you're working, but when you're looking at your Social Security check and how much money do you have to do this, you don't have an additional $120 a year plus $8 a month. You know, that makes a difference of if they're going to the food bank or not to get their food. So we don't want to unhouse these people because of this insurance requirement. The county as a whole has taken our response to a lot of this is to look at what we can do as a county to build in things to help safeguard the safety of this community better. But the insurance items won't be going away for them. And that's a big concern for us. And especially even if we could just look at it from a county and I can see how everybody is getting rated so that I, as a floodplain manager, could help dispute them because they don't have the skill set necessarily or the background in any of this to even understand what they're looking at with some of this. The other thing I can point out is the insurance agents really need a lot more training. I just spent 3 weeks going back and forth telling an insurance agent that they were reading the elevation certificate incorrectly. And I questioned the surveyor. Erin got involved. You know, we were looking at it like, am I looking at this wrong? And they were refusing to listen to anybody with expertise that they were reading this wrong. So, and those are the people that are putting the information in the computer to get the person's rate. So anyway, that's part of my rant, but it's very, very frustrating, especially for people that don't have the ability to absorb these increase in cost.
Yeah, no, I think everything you highlighted, that definitely has been, you know, part of these, you know, challenges. It really was something that was just rolled out. I mean, there was some delays in bringing it out. But once it moved forward, it was like, well, you know, here we go. And this is what's available. Unfortunately, there really isn't like at least I'm not hearing of like any, general movements of whether that's financial assistance for flood premiums, whether that's a movement to increase the transparency of what's being done from some of these flood insurance ratings. It still really goes down sometimes to a case by case basis. And I would say in that instance to, rely on your NFIP state coordinator. You have Edie and I at the region. We have, like I said, emails that can be sent to the advocate's office or can be sent to the risk rating 2.0 mailbox to specifically look at that rate and look at possibly if there is some inaccuracies. And the agent training, that's something there's a big push to get more and more agents trained and to understand how this risk rating engine works and to make sure that information is accurate and correct. So I would say, if you do get some of these cases, I would, rely on the resources that are there. Please, feel free to reach out to Edie and I, and we'll try to provide the resources or the channels to take a look at that. I just don't know. Again, that's really up to FEMA headquarters to decide. Are they going to get enough information or enough of this same type of feedback and say, okay, well, we're going to introduce, something new down the line, or it's like, hey, we came up with this new way to rate policies, and this is the way that it's going to be done. Work with your carrier, work with your agent. But again, just know that there are some resources and some people there that we can provide some assistance down the line. But even like I said, for myself, when people called in, it's like, well, let me take a look at it, and I can check for some of these things, and that's even been more difficult for me because I don't even, the FEMA region myself, we don't have access to that risk rating engine. That's something that has been kept proprietary for those insurance agents and kind of just done behind the scenes. So yeah, definitely a challenge.
Adam. So we have kind of a list of questions compiled from the chat. So I'll go ahead and just pass those along. So how is the elevation certificate used with flood insurance? I actually know the answer to this one, but
no, go ahead, Erin, please. Let me catch my breath.
Well, it's no longer used in determining flood insurance, but it is still required for CRS communities to do those elevation certificates. I don't know if there's more to elaborate on that one, Adam, but.
Right. So it can be used. We talked about that first floor height, and there's some information there of the first elevated floor and things like the lowest adjacent grade and highest adjacent grade. So there can be some information for that to take place of the system generated first floor height. Again, sometimes those approximations are pretty conservative, maybe listing 1 to 2 feet, just to paint that practical kind of on the street perspective of that. You just don't see, I think in the past, sometimes when someone submitted an elevation certificate, it's like, hey, you saved, $700, or that changed your premium, by $1,200, whatever it may be. You're just not seeing that impact of the rate. It may lower it some, but you're just not seeing that big swing because the primary, seems like the primary drivers of this new rating is like replacement cost for the home, location of flooding source, but just kind of that convergence of all that information. So it may not have the impact before, but it could be used to help determine that first floor height.
Thank you. And the next question is, we did kind of discuss this one. When will it be possible for local floodplain managers to be able to look up data for local residents? And at this time, we don't know. It's not, and we don't know if it ever will be. Is that correct, Adam?
Correct. Yeah, correct. I would love to have, access to that. And I haven't heard anything coming down the line. Like I said, I do have some resources where we can direct some general comments or comments on higher premiums. And then FEMA headquarters can then get involved and then go ahead and try to work with the carrier and the property owner to maybe help, like I said, if there are some inaccuracies, or to help explain some of the premiums. So that is a channel that we can go through.
Okay, I'm going to put this one in the chat because it's a long. But the question is, will there still be an advantage for property to pursue a letter of map change determination, remove their structure, parcel, or portion of the zone that is adjacent?
Erin, your audio is kind of fading in and out.
I'm sorry. Well, the question is in the chat. I just chatted it, but the question is, will there still be an advantage for a property to pursue a letter of map change to remove their structure, parcel, or portion of their parcel when located in an AE zone that is adjacent to a more conservative AO zone?
So changing the zone because the flood zone is no longer used in the flood insurance rating. For an insurance rating, that may not be an advantage. Possibly for floodplain management, that there may be different requirements. So that may be beneficial. There still is, again, those lender requirements have not changed. Lenders still use FEMA flood maps. They still use the special flood hazard area to determine lender requirements. So in some cases, having that letter of map amendment or that letter of map change to remove a property from a special flood hazard area, that will still remove a lender requirement to have flood insurance. Again, as a flood person, and you get up on your soapbox and say, hey, you got to have flood coverage because again, working in these areas where even with the Hurricane Harvey, seeing the amount of policies outside of the special flood hazard area that were affected by that, even like I said, working in areas that sometimes you couldn't imagine happening. Again, having some type of flood coverage, but again, removing that property from the special flood hazard area at least makes that purchase of the flood insurance voluntary, and that is something that a property owner can still pursue through the FEMA Map Service Center.
Okay, next question I'm chatting in as well. It's a little bit longer. So the question is, how are regulated/controlled, example, dams, streams viewed when realized in inundation area is much smaller than what the firm maps show? Conversely, if there is a dam failure, the inundation area will likely be much larger than what the firm map shows. So actually, I used to be in dam safety, and this is something I've always kind of thought about as well, that the firms don't necessarily take into consideration a dam failure. Our inundation maps for dam failures are so large, but that's not considered in a firm or a special flood hazard area.
Right, and with risk rating 2.0, that is definitely something with this use of more technology versus just kind of a static rate or flood zone that's set. Even things, something like urbanization, where you have the addition of a lot of concrete and a lot of buildings. This is supposed to be able to integrate kind of more in real time and kind of keep staying up to date with these changes that come along. So hopefully, like I said, with as a system, again, we have this year of renewals that are coming out, and hopefully there's a review there. But the information is supposed to be more fluid in the sense that it can adapt to some of these changes as they move along, versus just kind of being. I mean, we know with firm maps sometimes, by the time the maps are issued, you're maybe looking at a 4 or 5 year process, and it was a snapshot in time. With risk rating 2.0, it's just supposed to be a little more dynamic and a little more fluid in incorporating some of this flood risk as they're happening.
Yeah, so hopefully those type of considerations are being made and will continue to be made moving forward.
Definitely.
Okay, and then the last question I have, at least that compiled from the chat, I asked you this the other day, is can you discuss how risk rating 2.0 affects CRS, community rating system?
Right, so there still is a community rating system discount that's provided. You don't have necessarily prior, if you would look at the old flood insurance manuals, you had kind of different amounts for different flood zones. Now communities just get that discount across the board. But as we did kind of mention in the presentation, and I think the question was even asked, and I possibly answered that vocally, is that until the policy is full risk rated, you won't see that CRS discount applied to that particular policy.
Thank you. And we do have a presentation on CRS next, so we'll learn just more about CRS in general. I have a quick question for you. This is pretty out there and theoretical. I don't know if you'll have an answer to it, but with the direction that risk rating 2.0 is taking, and kind of, we still have these special flood hazard areas, which kind of seem like a little bit of the past when we're considering the risk rating. Do you see just the whole mapping and flood zones and special flood hazard area moving in a different direction?
We still have map meetings that we'll be taking part of. We're still talking with communities about the impacts of those areas. Again, floodplain management requirements have not changed. Lender requirements have not changed. That's still based off the FEMA mapping information. So I'm not sure if this risk rating 2 supposedly that this talks about, this is kind of just the start of the reform of the program. But yeah, that's really done at a lot higher level than what I'm involved with. I kind of just get the information delivered to me as it's sent out. So yeah, you would hope that there would be more integration of some of this data. You would hope, like I said, that maybe there's enough information for people, especially talking about these rate increases, the premiums, the impact of that the property owners. I mean, again, the affordability factor. I mean, that's such a big word, and it's always been part of flood insurance, but especially now, like I said, the impact towards some of the property owners, where the difference between paying a premium may be the difference in going to the food bank or a house payment or whatever it may be. So I'm just hoping, like I said, that the more information we can gather and the more of that we can get submitted and sent off, at least there can be some identification of some trends, and hopefully like I said, this is just kind of the start, and hopefully there's some adjustments made along the way to maybe accommodate some of those impacts of especially the flood insurance premium can have.
Mhm. Yeah, I certainly hope so too. And I think it's a good approach if it can take the right direction moving forward. So awesome. All right. Are there any final questions? We have about 5 more minutes allotted for this panel. So if anybody wants to come off mute, type in the chat.
Here's some contact information, like I said, for myself and for Edie. I think Edie is returning from leave next week. That'll make my life a little easier. It's always great to be relied upon and for the region to say, hey, you're the insurance specialist during this time. But you know, if any of you have worked with her, we know how fantastic and communicative she can be in helping with any issues that come up. So please, again, feel free to send us emails or give us a call. Like I said, we really work together as a team and try to address as much of this information as we can and help where we can. And again, at least provide some type of resources so we can kind of all work through this together and deal with this big change. I mean, this is, like I said, this is kind of the biggest thing to happen to the flood program since the start of the flood program. I mean, it really is. So yeah, we'll all just kind of work together and be here and hopefully keep that moving forward. So thank you very much.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. Like you said, this really is the biggest change. So we really appreciate you being here today to deliver all this information. And I know that we'll just be looking for more information to come. And I've heard this presentation or variations of this presentation multiple times, and I still learn something new every time. So yeah, great info and happy to.
Yeah, and if anybody just wants resources, whether you want to attend maybe a risk rating 2.0 webinar or whatever, maybe we can always provide that. So again, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. I wish I could be with you all for the rest of the day. I had some personal family matters come up that I need to address later today, and but I really appreciate being invited to speak here and being part of this Watershed University. So everyone have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks. All right.
Go for it, Hunter.
Yeah. Well, all I'm going to say is time for a break.
Well, good morning to everyone. Looks like we got a good group today here. Before I kind of take off with CRS, I just wanted to mention that it was very appropriate to have Adam go before this, since there were quite a few CRS questions. And in regards to risk rating, so that these questions don't pop up later on, we in the CRS world over here, we are working on making changes to the program based on risk rating, but we're not quite there yet. We're kind of in the catch-up mode. And that happens normally when there are changes in with FEMA and the NFIP, and we kind of have to catch up and then kind of redo the CRS manual and things like that. So there will be changes to the CRS program eventually. I will assume that those changes, you'll start seeing those changes or at least proposals of changes probably in 2023. So just wanted to let everybody know that we're not quite there yet, and changes will be coming. I can assure you. So I just wanted to throw that out there first. Today, I want to go through giving you a bit of an introduction to the CRS program. I know that there's quite a few people. I'm scrolling up and down the participants list here, and I see that there are quite a few people who are already familiar with this program. But what I found over the course of 16 years doing this with ISO is that there's always somebody new, already somebody that doesn't know about CRS or has very little information about CRS. So I'm going to start today by giving you just a basic introduction of the CRS program, what it is, kind of how it works. And then the second part of my presentation will kind of go into, okay, now that I've got your attention, and if there's communities out there that are thinking about joining, we want to see if you can get in. And so that second part will kind of cover that a little bit. So anyways, I am Dave Arkens. I am a senior specialist with Insurance Services Office, and we have the contract now to manage the CRS program. I've been doing this with ISO, as I mentioned, for 16 years, but I've been involved with the CRS program on both a local official side and with ISO for about 25 years now. So let's see if that works. Okay, so just some CRS basics here. It is a FEMA NFIP program. It is a voluntary program, so if you're an NFIP community out there, you don't necessarily have to be a CRS program, a CRS community. And I will add that once you're in the CRS program, it's no longer voluntary. There is a certain aspect there where you have to manage and maintain the program. So it's not once you're in and you don't do anything else. There's a little bit of work to it. So, and I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit of that work as we proceed. Basically, most communities enter this program because they want flood insurance discounts. And as Adam and the questions were kind of thrown around there, some of those discounts are applying now, some of them aren't. And as we kind of go through the CRS and making changes, we'll learn what those are a little better. The CRS program gives you credit and points that you build up for kind of going above and beyond just the minimum normal NFIP requirements. And as I mentioned, it's administered right now by Insurance Services Office. We've had the agreement and now contract with FEMA since the inception of the program back in the early 90s. Our goals are not unlike the NFIP goals. Definitely, we want to reduce and avoid those flood damages to properties and insurable structures. By doing this, we strengthen the NFIP, which is always needed. And what usually happens on a local level is that you have a really nice floodplain management program. And that's fostered by making sure that all of the different departments that are needing to participate in the program, like parks and public works and planning and administration and emergency services, all of those departments have a part and a role to play in the CRS program. And so it's always very helpful to a community to make sure they're communicating with these different departments. The class of CRS communities are determined by how many points you get. And you get those points by applying for different elements and different activities within those activities. And as you build up points, you become a class 9 or a class 8 or a class 7, depending on what you're doing and what activities you want to apply for. The lower the class is kind of works like a golf score. So the lower the class, the better your CRS community is and the better class you have. And of course, the better the class you have, the more points you have. And the more points you have, the bigger the discount you have for your flood insurance holders. And obviously this is probably a little dated, this table that I have here. At some point there will be some discounts in this column. Those may be applied at this point. I'm not sure. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit. But there will be discounts for just about all flood insurance policies at some point. Again, I'm not sure how those discounts are going to apply for like a PRP policy or something in the X zone or something, but that'll be determined later on. But anyways, we just want to make sure that everybody understands the better the class, the more points you have, and of course, the more work that you have to do on your part to get there. And I'll go through that a little bit as well. Right now, nationwide, we have about 1,500 communities in the CRS program. Most of those are right around that class 8 or class 7 level or class. And then that would be the 8 would be a 10% discount and the 7 would be a 15% discount. And then as we get into the 6s and 5s and we get into the higher discounts, of course, you've got a little more work to do. You've got a little more, you got a few more activities and elements within those activities to apply for, and you build up credits to get to that level. And then when you get down into the class 4 and better, of course, we have so few of those communities because the requirements for all those continue to get a little more extensive as the further down you go. And I will say with this particular table, we no longer have just one class 1 community, but now we have 2. So for the longest time, for probably about 2 decades, we've had Roseville, California, who's our class 1 community. We now have Tulsa, Oklahoma, who is a class 1 community as well. So congratulations to them. This map kind of gives you an idea of where everything is kind of spread out. If you kind of look along the coastlines, you get a little more higher concentrations of CRS communities, and rightfully so. They probably have a little more of a hazard per se. Not that we don't have the hazards here in Nevada that others do, but the hurricanes and the things like that kind of make a difference. So this just to kind of gives you a little bit idea of where all they are. And the stars that you see are class 4 communities and better. So you got a little cluster up here in the state of Washington, over in California, and a few scattered throughout the rest of the nation here. Now, getting a little more local, we currently have 9 CRS communities in this state, in Nevada. They vary from class 7 to a class 5. And these are all these communities right here have been in the CRS program for a good number of years, most of them. And just to kind of let you guys know, upcoming for 2023, I will be cycling, be verifying again Clark County, Douglas, Washoe, Carson City, Story, and North Las Vegas, all in 2023. So for those of you who are out there in those communities, I'll be contacting you soon, if not early next year, to starting arranging those cycle visits with you. Now this map here is a little interesting to me. The green dots are all participating CRS communities, as I showed you in the previous slide. And then all the red squares are communities that are not participating for some reason or another. I would certainly like to talk to anybody from Nye County about the CRS program, since they looks like they have the most insurance policies of any community in the state. So it would be very interesting to try to get those folks in. So if you're interested, if you're you want to try this out, please contact me. I'll have some contact information on a later slide. But it's an interesting layout here. We don't have a whole lot of flood insurance policies as compared to like the state of Florida, where there's millions, actually millions of policies there. But there's still a good reason to join the CRS program, just for those folks that do have to have insurance policies. So right now we are using the 2017 CRS Coordinators Manual in conjunction with what we introduced in 2021, the 2021 CRS Addendum. And we are now using those in conjunction with each other. So for those communities that are going to be cycled next year, as I mentioned before, you're going to be graded under both of these different manuals. So those are things that you might want to start looking into and getting a hold of if you don't have it already. And again, those manuals will be changing. I'm not sure how severe, how much, but they will be changing as we go into kind of a new era with risk rating. So for a community just starting out, we're looking at doing what we call a new application with them. And it requires you and your CEO. So if you're a city or a mayor or a city manager, would be signing a letter of interest that would go to the FEMA region. And that letter would kind of start the clock ticking, so to speak. It would let us know that you're interested in CRS and participating in the program. But then it requires the FEMA or state to start doing a CAV with you, and different things like that. It kind of starts the ball rolling. Now you can kind of determine whether or not you've got some credit and you're doing some things for CRS in the CRS quick check. So it's just kind of a check to some things that you can go through and go, you know something, I think I might have 500 points to get there and to at least start participating in the program. Once the FEMA region has given us the okay, then we start to contact you and start working on a CRS application. Now this isn't like a job application or anything like that. It's a little more extensive and complicated than that. But what we do on our side, and me myself as a specialist, we help you get through that process. We can kind of assist you and help you interpret the manual correctly, because there's a lot of different interpretations on this thing. But we help you get through that process as much as we can. Now we can't put the documentation together for you, unfortunately. But we can certainly ask questions and get you the credit that you need and the documentation that you'll need. We can check that out for you. So that's a little bit of a start there for how you get in. Now, once you're in, you're going to have an annual recertification to do every year. Now, the recertification is not nearly as extensive as a new application visit or later on a cycle verification visit. It's a much more scaled down version of that, where you don't have to put as much documentation together for us. And let's say that you come into the program as a class 9 and you know that you can do some other things. Well, you don't have to necessarily wait for 3 or 5 years to get another class change. We can do a modification with you pretty much at any time. So if you're a community that's a class 9, you want to say you want to get to a class 8 or a class 7, then we can do a modification at that point between cycle verifications. So that's kind of a nice little feature as well. So the program prerequisites are as follows. To be a Class 9 community, you have to have been in the regular phase of the NFIP for at least 1 year. The CAV will determine whether you're in full compliance with all the NFIP requirements. You'll have to be maintaining elevation certificates on newer buildings. And if you do have repetitive losses, you'll have to address those concerns. You'll have to maintain flood insurance policies on all properties owned by the community, and that could be a self-insured kind of thing as well. And of course, to get to that Class 9, you've got to have at least 500 points. So you've got to have at least a few activities with some points in it to get to this point. Now, going a step further, if you want to be a Class 8 or better, obviously you got to have a little more points. You got to have 1,000 points. You got to meet all those Class 9 prerequisites. You've got to provide us with a elevation certificate, standard operating procedure. And what is new now with the 2021 addendum is that you must enforce at least a 1-foot freeboard for residential construction. That includes mechanical, and that applies also to manufactured homes. We have had a few communities that have not been able to meet this and have taken a retrograde, but that is basically one of the big requirements for most communities in trying to be a Class 8 or better. Now, continuing with that, you know, as you're going down the line here with different classes, you've got obviously more points that you've got to do. You've got to apply for more activities and the elements in those activities. Got to meet all the Class 8 and 7 prerequisites, and you've got to have a BSEGS of 5 or better. Now, for those of you who don't know what a BSEGS is, BSEGS stands for Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. And it's basically a rating for your building department. So if your building department is up to snuff with their building codes, your building inspectors have the certificates they need, and there's a little more to it than that, then you'll probably have a pretty good BSEGS rating. And so that's a consideration as well as you're moving down the class schedule here. And then, of course, you've got the Class 4 prerequisites. Well, as you can see, there's just a whole lot more stuff here to be applying for and have to get credits under, and having certain minimum numbers of credits in certain activities and things like that. When you get down into this level, you're really getting down into the CRS program. And this is where you've got really experienced folks that are putting this stuff together, and a good number of our Class 4 and better communities end up hiring some consultants to help them out with this as well. But of course, you're looking at much bigger discounts for your citizens as well, being a Class 4 or better. And then, of course, we have the Class 1 prerequisites. Well, let me just say that it's just a whole lot more stuff. And I'll kind of leave it at there for Class 1, since we only have 2. If you're getting down to this level, you'll need some assistance and a lot of planning that goes into being a Class 1. One of our greatest resources to get more information about CRS is located on the crsresources.org page. Not only can you download copies of the 2 manuals that we are currently using, you can download all kinds of different outreach projects, logs, sample anything really that we have in these different series of activities. One thing that I do want to point out is that there's not a whole lot of communities out there that start out from scratch. As I mentioned before, we've got about 1,500 communities that are participating in this program. So we've got a lot of different outreach projects out there that we can share, and we can and we've posted actually on this website that you can use, that you can start, and you can copy over and make the name changes and the phone number changes on the different items. But there's a lot of stuff here that you don't have to start from scratch on, which is a really nice feature. Anyways, go to the CRS resources page if you're interested in just learning some stuff. And I do want to bring up the training as well. It really does help if you can get some training for learning the different aspects of the program. We've got anything from a 1-hour webinar that you can sign up for, all the way up to the full 4-day EMI classes that you can get in touch with. So I've got a lot of different variations of training for this program. So for those of you that are interested, you don't have my contact information, go ahead and take a snapshot of this of your phone, or maybe a copy of this will be available later on. Is there any questions I can answer just real quick before I jump into the rest of this? Anybody out there tracking questions, if there's any?
Not seeing any questions in the, oh wait, scrolling up a little bit. What communities have dropped recently, and can you say why?
I'm assuming that you mean in the state of Nevada, because I could go on and on and on about communities that have dropped nationwide, since I'm all around the nation. The most recent one that I have dealt with in the state, I think it was up in Lander County, I think it was. They had so few policies that they just didn't think it was worth staying in the program, honestly. And we do have a few communities out there that that do this. In fact, I had a community in Utah. They had 0 flood insurance policies, and they'd been in the they've been in the CRS program for a number of years, and they just decided to step back and take another look at it, and so they chose to step out of the program. So we always do have a few of those once in a while. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and continue this. I hope I'm okay time-wise. I think I am. So if I've
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, this is Debbie Nedenrep, and we have a regional floodplain management plan that used to get more points. And so we're talking Douglas County and Carson City are in the CRS.
Mm-hmm.
So our floodplain management plan dropped points. And so I talked to a gal, what was her name, in Florida who gets a really good score on their floodplain management plan. Okay. And so if you're going to be doing cycle visits next year, it would be great to maybe find out from you how we can buff up our floodplain management plan to maximize points.
Okay. I would be glad to have kind of a pre-cycle visit meeting with you. I try to do that with most of our communities. But in this case, if you're talking about a floodplain management plan, I would recommend even trying to do it within the next few weeks before we get into 2023. Because usually if you want to change that type of plan, it takes some coordination and planning on your guys' part to make those updates and changes. It's not a simple plan to change.
Right. So yeah, maybe we could connect with Rob and Courtney and have a chat about that.
Absolutely.
With you.
In fact, I'll make a note here, try to contact you guys in the next few days or couple weeks, hopefully before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
All right, and Dave, just a quick time check-in with you. You have until 11:20, so another 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. That should be just perfect.
Wonderful.
Okay, so kind of the second part of this, now that I've kind of hopefully piqued somebody's interest out there, and you might be asking the question, okay, where do I go from here? What do I do? How do I get my community into the CRS program? And so I came up with this part of the presentation several years back because this is a question that's always out there for communities that have little to no experience with CRS, or just haven't had a chance to explore it. These are some of the questions that you would have to ask yourself before you proceed. So the very first question is, do I realistically have 500 points to become a Class 9 community? That's a great question to ask. And there's a couple of ways that you can kind of check this out and look at it. First of all, what I have come to find out that most communities out there are already doing the work that could be credible in CRS. Most of you out there are already keeping elevation certificates. That's a credible item now in CRS. You're providing flood map information to people that come in at the counter or giving you a call. You're letting them know what the flood zone is, what their BFE is, and so on. You might be, or other departments in your community might already be conducting outreach. Flyers, newsletters, social media, those kind of things. And if it's flood related, great, it might already be credible in CRS, but those are little mechanisms and methods you could use to add to and kind of piggyback on for CRS credit. I haven't run across too many communities that do not have a website. Having flood information on your website is credible in CRS. Preserving open space in the floodplain. This is another one where there aren't too many communities I've run across that do not have some kind of open space within their special flood hazard area. And so that is credible as long as that's open and preserved as open space. There may very well be some credit there. Requiring higher regulatory standards like freeboard. Some of you may already have freeboard in your ordinance. Many of you do. That's credible in CRS, and there may be other higher standards that are in your ordinance that could be considered to be credible in this program as well. Most everybody has some type of mapping system, GIS mostly. Just those mapping layers, different mapping layers that you have in your program could be credible layers in the CRS program. And like we just talked about, a hazard mitigation plan or a floodplain management plan, I believe it's still a requirement that most communities have some type of plan like this. So that's typically credible in this program as well, depending on how it was developed and how old it is and things like that. But these are all things that communities typically do already. So some of the work might already be done for you to try to get into the program. Do you have your governing body's approval? Is your city council ready to jump in? Is your mayor giving you the go-ahead sign? That's always a good sign, and typically the governing body usually gives that approval before you start going through the steps to get into the program to begin with. They're going to have to fill out a couple of forms. Your CEO will have to do this, just letting them know what activities you're going to be applying for, and that all flood insurance policies are enforced and things like that. So these are forms that we have available for you and that the CEO can sign. Can you and your staff actually handle the workload? For all of you out there that are CRS communities already, you know that there's a little bit of maintenance involved in this. And of course, the better class you are, the little more work it takes every time. Now, I sat on your side of the table. I've been a community official doing CRS work and floodplain management. And I know that on average, it was about 1 to 2 hours a month that I was spending with CRS stuff, just keeping logs up to date or sending an outreach project out and things like that. So it does take a little extra work. And of course, when you're being cycled and recertified, things like that, it'll take a little more time. But on average, it's a couple of hours per month, which wasn't too bad. And I was at a class 7 level at that point. So every class, you can probably add a few more minutes to that workload every month. Who will be your CRS coordinator? So this question's come up several times over the course of my career. What you need to know about the CRS comes from stuff that you may already have knowledge in. Now, your local dog catcher is probably not going to make a good CRS coordinator. Not that they couldn't do it, but typically your dog catcher doesn't have those qualifications to do this. You've got to have some knowledge of floodplain management. You've got to know what a firm and a flood insurance study is. You should be able to get through that CRS manual and learn the different activities and elements that you want to apply for, and kind of understand the language as well. You're going to have to be a person that can coordinate with other departments. As I mentioned before, different activities in this program require you to be in contact with parks, public works, planning, administration, emergency management. So everybody kind of has a role to play in your community, and you're the coordinator that coordinates all that. You'd be willing to go out and get some of the training that you need. The 4-day class or the webinars and things like that would be things that you would definitely want to start looking into. And being a CFM, a certified floodplain manager, is always a recommendation. You kind of, being a CFM, you kind of have that base knowledge of all these things. So that's a good place to start. So then the next step, now that you've gotten all these things covered and you go, yeah, I think we can be a CRS community, then you get your CEO to sign that letter of intention of entering the CRS. Now, we actually have a template. Like I said before, we don't start anything from scratch in this program, but we do have a template letter that we can share with you. And I think it's actually on the crsresources.org page. And you can get this letter, and you don't necessarily have to start this from scratch either. So if you're interested, you've got the points, you think you can be there, and you got your governing body's approval, get your CEO to sign this and get it off. That letter would actually go to the local FEMA region. And Antoinette is going to be speaking here in a little bit. That letter would go to her right now. So once that gets going, like I said before, you probably start the CAV process. Once FEMA is okay with that, then we get involved and start contacting you and working with you and doing everything we can do to help you through that process. So that kind of brings me to a close here. Hopefully I've given you some information that you haven't previously known about. And I would certainly love to get any phone calls or emails from you about joining or getting the ball kicked off, or even if you're a CRS community out there and you want to maybe make a class change, we can certainly talk about that for a modification at some point. So that brings me to an end, and I would be glad to answer any other questions that may have come in.
All right, not seeing any more questions for Dave.
Okay.
All right, well, seeing none, why don't we transition to Antoinette? Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you all as well.
Derek from Turkey River. I was curious if there's other communities besides Pahrump and Reno that have dropped out of the system in the last while. And
Yeah, the
why that
last one
might
I
have
did.
been.
Yeah, the last one I did, I think like we took Lander County out. Am I saying that right? It is Lander County, right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, they came out of the program. This has probably been 3 or 4 years ago. And I know Pahrump and Reno is way beyond that.
Okay, yeah, I know Washoe is still in it. But anyway, I'm just seeing less and less. I think a lot of it is, yeah, people don't necessarily have the time to put in it. I know you said it was about an hour or two a month, but then you're talking to classes and other stuff, and they're just not having the time to do it. And then with the risk rating, it's not coming into effect anyway, right?
On some policies, yeah, that's very true. And to be perfectly honest with you, the program over even my tenure here has become more complicated. There's a little more to putting together CRS documentation. So that's one of the things that they're going to be looking at with the changes for risk rating is making the program a little simpler. How they're going to do that, I'm not quite sure, but that's one of the issues that we run into quite often is the program is just too complicated, and we just, like you said, we just don't have time to do it. And I see that actually nationwide.
Gotcha. You know, that's good to hear that they're looking at it, though.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you
well,
so
this
much,
is
Dave.
Antoinette Stein, and maybe we do the transition. Sarah, does that sound good?
Take it away, Antoinette.
Oh, super. It looks like you pulled the deck, the slide deck. Thank you very much. Let's see if I can turn on video.
Antoinette, would
Okay.
you like to drive your own slides, or I can click
Sure.
through slides if you prefer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna make
would.
you.
Here, let's do a trial. Here, I just went forward. So first, let me introduce myself. I am Antoinette Stein, and I work out of the FEMA Region 9 Regional Office in Oakland, California, downtown Oakland, if anyone's been there. I work from a virtual home office many days of the week, and that's where I am today. So it is such a pleasure to meet everyone, and I would love to talk further, and let's get in contact whenever anyone has questions, needs resources, or, just is stumped on any floodplain management issue. So I am today going to be presenting after Dave's excellent. He is such a specialist, and it's a hard role to follow him because he has done such a fabulous job at presenting the material. But I am going to present on some materials that haven't been spoken about yet about the successes and challenges of this program. And let me move to the next slide. First of all, I just wanted to clarify from where we were earlier today. There was questions about the drought and arid issues in the region. This is a map of the United States, and as you can see, this shows here is the legend, and as you get darker colors, shows that it is considered by a metric that has done some very detailed scientific measurements to identify, let's see if I can blow it up. Nope, can't. I'm using my cursor, it doesn't blow up. But as you can see, there are some very, very considered very drought, arid areas. And this is a wonderful website. Anybody wants to use it. And as you can see, these pull downs here, you can get into even more detailed scientific overlays on top of this map. So that is important for us to present as our context of where we are with the CRS program that is advanced sustainable program. Well, the next place, as Dave presented, showed there is a website that FEMA offers. And on this website, there are these buttons. And I highly recommend anyone to go visit it and look at, today we had questions about who's in, who's out. Well, if you click on this participating communities button, it will take you into the MSC status book. And I will show you specifically what you'll see next. But before I do, look at this other button, the coordinator's manual that Dave also presented on. It takes you right to that page, which is this page. And here you can see there's posted both the 2017 edition as well as the coordinator's manual from 2021 that is coordinated together where we are today. So, and I highly recommend that you download these documents, take a look at the details, and as you will see, look in the background, there's my book up on my bookshelf. It's a thick book, and maybe I'll just, for sake of trying to understand it, it's heavy. It's a big book. It's a lot, and it will take a ton of time to go through the details. But if you download it and put it into a search mode using PDF Pro, you can use this manual very easily to take you right to pages that you have questions about. And that's excellent. So next, I wanted to tell you that that other button takes you right over to explain through the community status book, which is also an excellent resource, that in Nevada, see here's the map, we have 35 total flood program that are involved in participating in the NFIP, the National Insurance Program, Flood Insurance Program. So, and this status book is another excellent resource. And what it explains about CRS, the manual, the status book, is that there are challenges in this program because it's an incentive-based voluntary program that you can choose or not choose to be in. And these discounts are given to all of the participating policy holders. So it may be that your policy holders don't know enough information about the CRS program to know that these discounts are available to them if you participate. And for them to know that, information needs to flow. The incentive program is based on to reduce flood damage to insurable properties, strengthen and support insurance aspects, and foster comprehensive floodplain management. And Dave also presented on this. The comprehensive floodplain management is at the heart and soul of this program. It is very comprehensive, and it's for whole community resilience, increasing insurance coverage, not just those policyholders. It's to find new policyholders in communities that could take advantage of the program's assets. It's also to improve public safety. And that is, again, at the heart and soul of the program, public safety, reducing hazards, mitigation, improve protection of natural floodplain functions. Remember, in this program, it's a sustainable program. And that means it's not just to build, develop, it's to improve living with our environment. And our environment includes the natural floodplain. And to live with that floodplain, we need to understand how we can best live around that floodplain, our rivers, our creeks, flows of water, washes. It's really important that we understand and learn the science of that movement of flood waters, and then learn to live around it sustainably. If we do that in the CRS program gives discounts, and there are 12,654 total points. And remember, as Dave presented, 4,500 were pretty much the max to get to a rating of 1. So there's a ton of extra credits that are available. It's a creative program, voluntary, for those that want to join to get points and figure out how to live around the floodplain in the community and for the community and for public safety. The successes of the CRS program are given on this website. I highly recommend people go to it. The website explains that having stronger standards is a success, and how communities have used those stronger standards. It's also to heighten awareness. And as I explained, heightening awareness explains how to live around our floodplains sustainably in a way that we can reduce damages, reduce hazards to life, credibility and recognition to our political bodies, gives support, and that's what the CRS program is designed to do. And once we get this credibility and recognition, we lead by example. Our leaders explain and show how to use the program in a way that gives safety to those that live around the floodplain. It protects the environment. Remember, living around the floodplain means that we are developing in a beneficial manner how the floodplain can exist, and we can live one-on-one together with the floodplain. Flood damage can be avoided when we do this, and vulnerability is reduced. We improve the capability of our maps. We understand the movement of that water better because we use the science available, and we make high definition maps that we share with our community. We broaden floodplain insurance coverage. Once people know that there's a hazard in front of them, it's so important for them to know that they can be insured and covered in case that flood ever comes. And we also forge partnerships. As Dave explained, we forge our partnership with our building department. We also forge partnerships with those around us, other communities next to us. It's working together, and it's a wonderful program and provides successes. As you were wondering in this program, as I went back, there's 12,000 maximum points. Well, what are those points? How do I understand this program? How do I go through that big book? Well, it's simplified into these buckets. These are the series: 300 series, 400 series, 500 series, 600 series. Well, public information, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction, flood preparedness. And in those, you can get points. And so as we scan through this, oh boy, look at in this area, you can get 5,841 points. The average points in the US is about 1,000. Which one's popular? Which of these buckets? Ooh, this one seems to get average points above the maximum number of points. And my understanding, and Dave, if you're still on, you might come in, explain that you can bundle these together with other and get extra points. These buckets, the 400 series, includes the higher standards. Many of you already have the higher standards. And so these would give you points for it. Flood data maintenance, keeping flood and property data on computer records. Many of your departments already do this. So why not get credit for it? Stormwater management. Many departments already engage in regulating new development throughout the watershed to ensure that post-development runoff is no greater than pre-development runoff. I mean, that's usually requirement. And so you could get the credits for it. And many people believe, oh, it's very hard to participate in this program. It's challenging. Well, the program points you in the direction in which you can systematically set up your programs to make this happen in an easy way so that it's systematic. It's done. It's done on your computer. Your records are there. And once you systematize your program, it makes it easier for you and those in your building department. So I highly recommend participating in the program. There's lots of materials that provide resources to learn how to do that.
Antoinette, sorry to interrupt. Quick time check. We have maybe about 2 or 3 minutes left.
Okay, quick. This website, CRS Viz, is a great resource. It's a visual resource, and it takes you into Nevada, which Dave presented already, and gives you the information of who's in, who's out. And looking at the data, this is small, but Henderson just glows and is bright because they have many high rating points. And using this website, you can look and find out, well, gee, they're in. I want to contact them. Partnering. That's what it's all about. Because showing and telling and leading by example is what being sustainable is about. And so once you see what Henderson's doing, you yourself can join and do the same. I know I'm going to be cut off, but I'm going to whiz through these other slides that you will have available to download. And they include other communities that should consider thinking about joining, as well as those here that it's a challenge because they have open calves. It wouldn't be possible to join. Need to close those calves first. And that, then think about joining. Thank you so much. Please contact me and I can provide resources to help you join the CRS program. Well, hope we're partners, and this is us working together. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Antoinette.
Sure.
Great.
Maybe we'll have questions.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those resources that FEMA has on the community rating system. And also want to thank again Dave previously for presenting, and just want to kind of open it up. If there are questions for Antoinette or Dave, we can go ahead and take those now. I did see one come in the chat here, Antoinette, for you while you were presenting from Mr. Lampa. Are there any updates on the public comment period taken last year?
Thank you, Rob. And Rob and I partnered together and work very closely in California. So the answer to that question is, first of all, for those that don't even know what public was open, I highly recommend going over to the website where this was in the Code of Federal Regulations, opened up a website and took comments. There were 311 comment submittals, and you can read them. It's open source. And so it's called ECFR, and just Google FEMA 2021 and CRS, and you'll see them all. And reading or finding, you can again search if you're wondering, well, what were those comments? Some of the main comments were, how can we make the program simpler? And we're hoping to have answers to those comments very shortly. Again, I work in the regional office, and that is being looked at by our headquarters and being sorted through a contract to really understand what was submitted, so that the answers can be considered wholly and very comprehensively. So that's as much as I have. And Rob, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you, but hopefully anyone has a question about how to go to that website, see those questions, let me know.
Great, thank you, Antoinette. And it looks like Kelly has a hand up.
Oh, good. Kelly, do you want to just go off mute? Oh, how do we do that?
Actually, I was trying to get it off myself.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Kelly.
Hi. Can you repeat the website that you had that showed the state with all of our programs that we were implementing and the ratings that we got? What was that?
Oh, sure. It's called, and maybe we could go backwards. Let's see if I can do that. See back. Yeah, the poll, because the poll questions are there, it's blocking me from going back. But it's called CRS Viz, and it's spelled VYZ. CRS Viz. And it, as you saw where I put them up, it's a little bit complicated, but once you dig into it, gives such good open information about who's participating, what they're doing, who's getting what credits, and it's a good source to go, wow, they're getting this credit, I'm going to contact them.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Antoinette. And sorry about taking over there for the poll. Yes, if there are any additional links that you want to add to the chat, that would be awesome. And then also we will be able to share all the content that was provided today. So again, thank you so much, Antoinette and Dave, for teaching us more about the community rating system. We're going to just take a quick minute I'm going to bring up a poll. This is a knowledge check to see what you might know about the CRS rating scale. And let me open that up for you all. A quick disclaimer on that. We had put 9 as the highest and kind of learned today that actually 10 is the highest. So I'll let you take a minute to fill that out, and then we're going to be transitioning to our themed breakout rooms here momentarily. We'll give about 1 more minute for the knowledge check and then go ahead and close that out. So for those wanting to receive continuing education credits, please fill out the knowledge checks. And we'll be providing certificates over the next week or so. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and close our poll. If you haven't filled it out yet, you have about 15 seconds to do that.
Actually, Danae, what I learned today, not having to be on the driver's side of this, but watching, is that when you close the poll is ended for us, and that 15 seconds is just for, I think, WebEx to process the data. So,
okay. Good.
It's totally
Good.
cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Hunter. Okay, I think we're ready to go ahead and make a transition to our breakout room. So I'm going to pass the presenter ball over to Lindsay to help us through that.
Thanks, Danae. So we are going to be running breakout sessions. These will run for about 25 minutes.
Welcome back. I'm seeing everybody coming back. You're looking at a beautiful picture that we started making together this morning. And Andrew Trelease, nice. That's good. What is that in your background there?
That is one of the big reasons why the Regional Flood Control District exists. It's flooding in Caesar's Palace in 1977. Flamingo Wash used to go right through the middle of the parking lot, and people were inside enjoying themselves in the city of Las Vegas, or actually in the Strip, which is not actually in the city of Las Vegas, but famous anyway, and then came outside after a big monsoon storm and found their cars across the street piled up with a bunch of other cars. So the politicians realized that that was not acceptable and decided we needed to do something bigger and better to solve the problem of flooding in Las Vegas area. And that's why we were formed. So that won't happen again. I'm just saying.
Not while you're there, Andrew. Not while you're there.
Not there, at least. Well, the Flamingo Wash actually goes right underneath Caesar's Palace now, so it's like it's still kind of scary, but you know, it works a lot better now.
Oh, well, that's good. This is great to see these. I just want to say thanks to all of you for playing along and pulling up some pictures and using this as a means. I mean, nothing beats getting together in person. I'm not gonna lie. You know, we really need to get together in person for a lot of reasons. We need to do it safely. We need to do it responsibly. We need to use, you know, use good judgment. But we can also do a lot of cool things from a virtual space if we play around with the toys and the tools. I just advanced to the last slide that I have, so I want to ask my colleagues Danae and Lindsay if am I on target here for doing what I'm doing, or should you be doing something else?
You are on target. We are in the home stretch of wrapping up this year's Watershed University.
So one thing I will say really quick, we were talking in the breakout group about homeless outreach and things like that, or outreach due to homelessness. And so I copied a link to a segment that we produced for our flood channel. It's about 5-6 minutes. And Danae just copied it to the chat here. So if people want to grab that, it was at Shine a Light Foundation. They did some, we went and followed them out and got some interviews with people that are dealing with experiencing homelessness in Las Vegas. And it's a pretty powerful segment. I think our public information group did a great job with it. So I'd encourage everyone to watch it and and let us know if you have any comments.
It's super helpful, Andrew. In fact, Lindsay and I are going to be going from this web meeting to a different web meeting, and it's right on that same topic, focused geographically on San Francisco and some of the challenges that they're facing with communities in the floodplain there that are experiencing homelessness. Debbie, I see your picture there, and it's great to see you virtually 2D. It's we don't see each other enough, but it's nice video. Any like last thoughts on this, since you have been super engaged on the web yesterday and today?
Just really appreciate it. I too can't wait until we can hang out in Virginia City together.
Yeah, Virginia City is one of my favorite places. I can't. Where's my cowboy hat?
Yeah.
Best hat store in all of Nevada, probably all of the country, is in Virginia City. So go get yourself a hat. The survey that you see here should be able to interface with your cell phones. So if you have a QR code reader, take a snip of that. And if you don't have a QR code reader, there you go. Danae just put up the poll. I'm sorry, put up the survey link. The poll that I have here, that since you took away the presenter ball, I'm saving the poll and saving the results of our last poll.
Thank
Do you all
you.
want to speak? Do you all want to speak to CEC credits and the kind of the housekeeping items as we are closing out?
Yeah, just one last thank you to everybody. Sorry, I'm gonna uncover my camera. Hunter, for some reason, if you cover the camera so that your picture can show, it's like all of a sudden it gets this like black ghost thing over the top of it eventually.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just like to show off my dog, but that's neither here nor there. But thank you everybody for being here, and thank you to all of our like illustrious presenters. I know you all have very busy schedules, and we're so grateful that you chose to spend some of your valuable time here with us. And yeah, please fill out our exit survey. That'll help us out so much. And we hope to do this again in the future, whether in person or virtually. Erin, Lindsay, Danae, anything you guys would like to add that I missed there?
I would just like to echo, this is Erin, echo Sarah's thanks to everybody who attended and the presenters that we had today. This was the first ever Nevada Watershed University, and we're thrilled with the way that it all came together. And next week is Nevada Flood Awareness Week. Yay! So this is like a great way to send us into that week. And for those of you that are local, we'll see you at some of the in-person events. For those of you that are not, keep an eye on our social media. If you haven't already liked Nevada Floods on Facebook, do so. You'll get to see some cool updates next week. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming. I don't know if anybody else from Army Corps has anything to add, but that's all from the state.